Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Jai Gurudev. So we'll just go through this verse one more time. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So niraharasya, for the one who does not feed the sense organs, dehinaha, for the one who indwells this body, vishayaha, senses, vinivartante, come back to oneself. Rasavarjam, leaving the longing behind, param brahman, drishtva, having seen, asya, of this person, rasaha, longing, api, even, nivartate, goes away. So niraharasya dehinah vishayaha vinivartante rasavarjam param drishtva asya rasah api nivartate. For the one who does not feed the senses come back to oneself, leaving the longing behind. Having seen Brahman, when the self is known, even the longing goes away. There is the possibility of a doubt here. Does this capacity to withdraw one's senses from the sense objects at will give the person jnana-nishta? No. Even a complete fool can practice this technique. A yogi also actively engages in this discipline of withdrawing the senses. The sense organs can be withdrawn as a turtle withdraws its limbs. Therefore, you cannot say a person is a jnana-nishta merely because he or she can withdraw the senses and sit with himself or herself. Shankara presents this doubt here in order to deal with it. Even though people may not go along with their fancies, the taste for them will still be there. Therefore, is not the practice of suppression rather than a withdrawal? We have seen how people blow up. The senses definitely get them sooner or later. If not today, then tomorrow. Why? Because everything is suppressed inside. When the value for something is inside a man, he will definitely deliver himself into the hands of his senses eventually. Because he is not their master, the senses will get him. If he thinks he has enslaved them, he need only wait for certain situations to present themselves. He will find himself enslaved by his senses in no time. They will take him for a ride. In the wink of an eye, he will be gone totally. Isn't this what happens when we listen to some comments? Through the senses, through the sense of hearing, you listen to maybe some humiliating comments. And what happens to us? It starts cooking up. It actually evokes an emotional turmoil, an emotional storm that kicks up inside. Same thing with what we see, what we hear, touch, taste, or smell. So the different situations that we encounter will indicate how much of this rasa we have actually taken care of. The taste lingers on. Thus, even an ordinary person can withdraw the senses, but the taste, rasa, and value for the fancies will still be there. Such a person feels that certain enjoyments are important, and without them, he or she cannot be happy. Suppose because this person is told that sense enjoyments are all very painful, he or she decides not to go after them. Then he or she might begin practicing withdrawal of the senses, but find that the rasa does not go away. Even though who already have Even those who already have a value for meditation and learn to withdraw the senses in order to discover ananda in themselves or gain inner contentment may continue to have a value for the enjoyments of the senses. The question is, when would the taste, the subjective value for sense enjoyments go? The subjective value is an emotional value. Suppose a person is not a fool and has viveka. He is intellectually convinced that sense enjoyments are of no use because they do not provide any real security or lasting pleasure. Even if this person has no intellectual value for sense enjoyments, he or she may still have an emotional value. Therefore, when and how will this emotional value go? The emotional value is very important and must be recognized as such. Emotion is a part of your life, a part of your expression. Therefore, you cannot dismiss it, nor is it necessary to do so. So you cannot dismiss it, nor is it necessary to do so. And emotion does need to be respected because it has a power that can be overpowering. We can be completely overwhelmed by emotion, and therefore we need to know how to tackle it. So it's not a question of suppressing or overpowering it or dismissing it. It is only how to tackle it. We acknowledge it is there. It is part of our system. Mind and emotions, they are part of life. We only need know how to tackle it. An emotional value, which is a subjective value, is different from an intellectual value, which is objective. Intellectually, your analysis can be clean. These are all sense objects. They do not contain any joy or security. I am insecure and remain so, whether I have sense objects or not, whether I have money or not. Therefore, I need to discover security within myself. All of this you may know. But although you know that money does not make you secure, you still have an emotional value for it. And even if you do not have an emotional value for money, an intellectual value will definitely be there because you do need to buy a few things. Therefore, to say that money has no value is not correct. So we cannot just dismiss it off because there are things that you need. The value of money. That money does not give you security is a fact. See, and the previous sentence, we all know this. We've been reading all of this for so long. So we know that the senses do not give us any joy or long lasting security and joy. We know I am insecure whether I have sense objects or not, whether I have money or not. Therefore, I need to discover security within my. This we all know as a concept. It is only an intellectual concept. We do not know that as as part of our being. We have not come to that state of jnana nishta yet. So therefore, although that money does not make you secure, you still have an emotional value. We still have to feed this body. We still have to have a roof over our heads. All this requires, all this requires money. So money does have both an intellectual as well as an emotional value. The value of money. Yeah.
So
Yes.
here it is not the about the emotion, uh, like when somebody is saying the humiliating remark
Hmm.
or anything. It is not about that. It is about the material aspect of the objects, isn't it?
Right.
Okay. Okay, Brahmarati. Very beautiful. Yeah.
See, it is what I think the central idea is to bring in that we know the paramarthika satta, we know what the truth is as a concept, but we have to live in this world, which is the vyavaharika satta. For that,
Hmm.
objects do have their practical value. In order to eat your food, you need a plate. You cannot say, I'll come from the standpoint of saying, I don't need the plate, I am secure in myself. Even a jnani will require a plate to eat.
Hmm.
It is what is your attitude, inner attitude is what matters. So there is a value, a practical value, intellectual value that certain sense objects have. But how do we relate to them? That is important.
So emotion contains the contentment of a person, that what, how much and how long, whether it is money or any other object. It can be the comforts of your home, or it can be the job, or it can be any possession.
Correct. It
So,
is subjective.
yeah, and it will differ, it will vary
Mm,
from,
mm.
correct. Very beautiful, yeah.
It is our
So your
individual.
priority and your vichara also matters here, whether
Right.
in your life, whether you want to put the Atma Bodh as your priority, or whether you want to keep, you go along with everything and then finally,
Mm,
yeah, very nice. For Grihasthi, I mean, it is very important that both the partners understand this.
mm.
Okay, Dhanyavad Brahmarati. Very nice.
The value of money. That money does not give you security is a fact. But money does give you a house, health, haircuts, and a variety of other necessities and comforts. Money is not something that has no value whatsoever. Because it has an objective value, it cannot be dismissed totally. With reference to its emotional value, money is used to measure success. If someone comes to see you in a new car and your car is battered, you find yourself wanting to have a new car. When money is used to measure your success, there is always a feeling that you have not made it. I did not do this and I did not do that is one of many inner tapes indicative of a subjective emotional value that cannot be dismissed. So the constant feeling that I am not enough, or that is that emotional value that goes on. Why? Because we use these things to measure success, specifically money. And in order to measure your success, you need the other. So, therefore, when you start comparing yourself with others, you will think, oh, I want to get there. And then all the negative distortions of love start happening. Greed happens. And then you want to achieve, you start becoming jealous because you have compared yourself with the other person. What the other person has, you don't have. So jealousy gets in. And then there is greed, there is desire. And then you want to achieve that. You want to possess that. And if anything obstructs that, you start getting angry. You don't start getting angry, you get angry. Anger comes as a storm. And then you get deluded, completely deluded.
Here, Gurudev's knowledge comes as a rescue, what we just saw no last week about the competition and
Correct.
compassion.
Yeah. It is so in correlation with what we're doing right now. I mean, the whole knowledge is like that. You can relate it. It is so relatable because they're all talking about the same tattva, Atma Tattva. So, how can you withdraw from that rasa? So then you say, I did not do this and I did not do that, is one of the many inner tapes. This inner tapes is what our inner self talk that we keep talking to ourselves, indicative of a subjective emotional value that cannot be dismissed. How can you withdraw from that rasa, that taste that is always there? To suppress the value is not the answer because suppression is nothing but a volcano that blows its top one day. Whenever there is suppression, this problem arises. Here, Krishna told Arjuna how the subjective value is dealt with. The word Vishayas usually means sense objects, but in the present context, it stands for the senses, the topic discussed in the previous and following verses. Based on similar expressions found in the Shastra, Shankara, in his commentary on this verse, converts sense objects into sense organs. Here, the sense organs belong to a person who does not take to any sense object, who denies himself or herself sense objects, who does not have any sense pursuits. Nirahara. Ahara means sense objects and refers to that which is taken by you. Food is ahara because it is eaten, taken by you. The one who does not feed the sense organs is therefore called a nirahara. Krishna also referred to this person as a dehi, meaning one who is alive in a physical body. So, ahara, the actual explanation is ahriyate iti aharaha. Ahara is that which is taken in. Therefore, it can mean food or any sense object in general. Actually, according to Ayurveda, ahara is anything that is fed into all the senses, all the five senses, whether it is your sight, smell, hearing, touching, eating, tasting, that is. So, but we normally understand ahara as something that we eat, that is to be fed in the mouth. But otherwise, ahara is every sense input, any sense input into the system is called ahara. Which is why that mitahara, which is recommended by Ayurveda, does not pertain only to the food that we eat. It pertains to all the other senses. And unfortunately, the current scenario is that mitahara, respect to the eyes, is completely gone. With the amount of screen addiction that the current generation, including me, I mean, I'm talking of myself, that we have, every now and then we go to the phone to check messages. So that doesn't become mitahara at all. There is no restriction, there is no dhamma, there is same thing with listening all the time. So withdrawing ourselves from this, giving us ourselves mitahara, that is on one side. So what Shankara is talking about here is a nirahara, one who is who is who does not feed the sense organs. So niraharasya dehinaha. Shankara makes this the point here that the person who engages in a rigorous discipline of sense withdrawal can can be either a viveki or an aviveki. He or she can even be deluded, a fool, murkaha api. In all cases, the sense organs that are withdrawn from the sense objects come back to oneself. Vishayaha vinivartante. But even though the sense organs come back and sense objects are no longer with the person, the taste for the sense objects remains. Rasavarjam vinivartante. In other words, the subjective emotional value for them is still there. If the person is deluded, an intellectual value will also be there, impelling the person to perform rigorous disciplines, tapas, merely because someone said that they should be done. The difference between a Viveki and an Aviveki then is that the Viveki will only have the subjective value, not the intellectual value, whereas the Aviveki will have both the subjective and the intellectual value. So I will read this paragraph one more time. So Shankara makes the point here that the person who engages in a rigorous discipline of sense withdrawal can be either a Viveki or an Aviveki. So, what is an example of a rigorous discipline of sense withdrawal? One is fasting, someone who is fasting. So, a person who is fasting can be either a Viveki or an Aviveki, or someone who is practicing the aspect of dispassion towards the material objects. So, in the inner attitude, he can either be a Viveki or an Aviveki. He or she can even be deluded, a fool, murkahapi. For instance, all those people who do these walking on the fire, I think Gurudev talks about them in some place where they they have just given up. Their the sense of touch is what is, they've withdrawn themselves from that. So they can walk on fire, they can pierce their ears, pierce their tongue, do all that. So even a fool can do that. In all cases, the sense organs that are withdrawn from the sense objects come back to oneself. Vishayaha vinivartante. But even though the sense organs come back and sense objects are no longer with the person, the taste for the sense objects remains. Rasavarjam vinivartante. In other words, the subjective emotional value for them is still there. So a person who's fasting, for instance, he still has that emotional value for food. If the person is deluded, an intellectual value will also be there, impelling the person to perform rigorous disciplines, tapas, merely because someone said that they should be done. So if someone is practicing, is observing a observing a fast only from the space of intellectual value, because someone said, oh, fasting is important, it cleanses, it does this, it does that, so he is only having, he or she is only having an intellectual value because someone said it should be done. They take it upon them and then do it. But when you actually look within, the emotional value is still lingering on. So the difference between a Viveki and an Aviveki then is that the Viveki will only have the subjective value, not the intellectual value. Whereas the Aviveki will have both subjective and intellectual value. I mean, let's just discuss this, because how does, for instance, this example of fasting, if it's a Viveki is doing the fasting, is fasting, he does not have the intellectual value. He just has the subjective value. Whereas the Aviveki will have both subjective and intellectual value. Let's share our thoughts on this before we go further. So a Viveki will come from this space of Viveka, discrimination, that the fasting, he's not doing it to gain something. He's only, he not because it was said that fasting gives you this, and this benefit. He's just doing it.
It's more with the knowledge that they have, you know.
More with that sense of Dhamma, more
Yeah,
as a sense of
and the
self control.
yeah, and also to the goal is to achieve that the Siddha Prajnatva, or if already Siddha Prajna, that's not a problem. Siddha Prajnatva, like when you wanted to be Siddha Prajna, and you want that happening, and that will help with that subjective value. But then, whereas the emotion, the intellectual value, we know it is a discrimination, but that person, Aviveki, has both. Like you read that other example, he will do the fasting, but at the same time, the rasa remains for that whatever he's doing. Uh, Actually, when you read further, they talk about money in that aspect, but then that's what the understanding. I mean, initially it was confusing to me as well. This the thing is, so Vivek, we need Viveka to achieve that, right? Viveka and Vairagya and all that stuff, right? So we have Viveka, but then again, um, we have to have that basic knowledge about Atma, and uh, that will help us.
Yeah. So here, a Viveki is not a Jnani. A Viveki is a person, a sadhak, who is exposed to this knowledge
Right.
and who has this inner discrimination. Aviveki is like a murkaha, a fool, who is just doing things because someone has said that. He's doing it without any discrimination.
See, Ayurveda, it says Pitta people should not do fasting because it aggravates the Pitta and they get into all sorts of ulcers, peptic ulcers, and all that. So somebody says somebody is doing that, it doesn't mean that, the person who has Pitta should also find out what is his constitution and then accordingly should do.
Correct.
Also, that suppression part of it, also doesn't really help getting rid of that rasa. So what makes rasa to go away is that the bottom line here. Anybody can do the very beginning in the first paragraph. That's what they talk about. It's anybody can do it, but what is the difference between the yogi and ordinary person doing this? That's where they brought this emotional value and intellectual value. It's more like subjective and objective matter. And the other thought I was wondering about, like intellectual, in terms of the object, you see it as an object rather than what you feel inside. That part I wasn't very clear to me, that whether the sense object is objective value, that
Which one are you talking about?
no, in terms of this objective value, right? I mean, I think it's not in the earlier part. I think it will come in the
Later part? Okay.
yeah.
We'll go, shall we move forward? We'll see. Like,
Yeah, when you said nirahara, also they mentioned here, right? I mean, in this particular one, they are talking about more like sense
sense objects.
objects, right? Yeah. So niragara, like with any senses that feed into any senses, that's called niragara. I mean agara. But when you don't feed into the sense organs, then it becomes niragara. Okay, got that.
So, knowledge alone removes rasa. So, again, going back to the last paragraph, the difference between a viveki and an aviveki then is that the viveki will only have the subjective value, not the intellectual value, whereas the aviveki will have both the subjective value and the intellectual value. Knowledge alone removes rasa. In general terms,
One more thing, Dr. Ramra, again in this particular one, subjective value means we are applying that to Atma only, right? Whereas,
no, applying it to Atma in the sense?
like when you say subject means, like we don't consider our body, mind as I, right? I mean, that subject.
No, I think here the subjective value means that emotional value. Emotions, like it was said
Emotion
earlier,
is, yeah, connected with the mind.
yeah,
Yeah.
connected
Okay.
with the mind. It is that emotional subject means emotional value. And that emotional value is important. We don't dismiss it. We only need to know how to tackle them. Tackle
Right.
the emotional value.
Emotions, yeah, that they are not asking you to explain it. But then when I said when it applied to Viveki, I wonder when they say subjective value, meaning I thought
It still means that emotional value only. See,
yeah.
with respect to, where is that? With reference to money, emotional value is used to measure success. See, this person has is practicing some sense withdrawal. Imagine, but he still has that emotional value. So he is running with a battered car, an old car. He sees his friend come in a new car. So instantly what happens? This person starts thinking, oh, because he uses money to measure success. So you have this feeling that you've not made it. I did not do this, I did not do that. So this is the self-talk that we go on. And this is indicative of a subjective emotional value that cannot be dismissed. How can you withdraw from that rasa, that taste that is always there? As long as he didn't see his friend come in a new car, this person was very happy, so to say. He was unflustered, correct? But that situation, what was that changed his inner conversation he was having with himself, is that the situation where he saw his friend come with a new car. And that triggered up a whole inner storm. Because he still has that rasa, that emotional value. He uses money to measure success. Oh, I don't have the car like he has. I have an old car, so I've not done enough. I am not as successful as he is. And that poor me goes on and on and on. So, but here, the what Shankara is talking of here, and Swamiji say, is that a Viveki has the subjective value only, whereas the Aviveki has both subjective as well as objective. He still is into the world of objects. He still wants to buy this, this, and this, so that because of that, he is going to be happy, secure. The Viveki has this distinction, this discrimination, that I am secure by myself. I know I am. He doesn't know, he knows it as a concept. I do not need this, this, and this to make me complete. He has that as a concept, but he still has that emotional value that is lingering on, which he has to tackle. And how will that get tackled? Knowledge alone removes rasa. This rasa we should equate to subjective value, equate to the emotional value. In general terms, rasa is a sense and is commonly used to mean raga or liking. Shankara describes it in the same way. Anything that is pleasing to you may be referred to as raga or rasa. This is the value that remains inside a person's heart and mind, even after having withdrawn the sense organs from it. This rasa too goes away, Krishna said, when the self is known. Rasopi param drishtva nivartate. This means that when a Viveki who pursues self knowledge and is judicious about his or her present pursuits withdraws the senses, there is no suppression. The Viveki is only living a life of meaningful discipline, whereas for a person who practices sense withdrawal without pursuing this knowledge, the withdrawal does amount to suppression. So, what is it that brings about that aspect of non suppression? You're just tackling the emotional value, is self knowledge. So, even pursuit of self knowledge is sufficient to say that you're not suppressing your emotional value, the rasa, you're only tackling it. Whereas an aviveki who just practices sense withdrawal without pursuing this knowledge, the withdrawal does amount to suppression. Like a person who does fasting, he's withdrawing his senses from the sense objects, yes. But he's doing it without this awareness, this exposure to self knowledge, then it'll amount to just suppressing his taste buds. And no amount of that fasting will actually get him anywhere. Of course, it will have its physical benefit, but with respect to pursuit of moksha, pursuit of as a mumukshu, he is not a mumukshu in the first place because he's an aviveki. A viveki is one who's a mumukshu. The literal meaning of the word drishtva is having seen, but here it is used purely in the sense of knowing. What is to be known is I am that. Tat param brahma aham eva. It is not any other jnana. That Brahman is myself. There is no difference between the two. Knowing that I am Brahman does not imply a knower known difference. And in the wake of this knowledge, the rasa goes away. Nivartate, meaning that it does not take the person for a ride. How the emotional value for sense objects can capture one's mind is explained by Krishna in the next verse. So, actually, in the wake of this self knowledge that I am Brahman, there is no other, there is Advaita. So, when there is Advaita, where is the question of even this rasa? When there is no other, what are you going to aspire for? What are you going to go after? There is only one. Once you can no longer be taken for a ride by the rasa, the knowledge of sense objects does not create any kind of craving or longing in you. It is seedless, nirbija, and therefore does not sprout, meaning that it does not set you up so that you are carried away by your fancies. However, when the clarity of vision is not there, meaning when knowledge is not there, elimination of the rasa is not possible. Therefore, knowledge in the form of clear vision, samyak darshana, has to be well established, steady, and firm. May you work on gaining this vision again and again, is what is meant here, because if you give up working for this vision, the erroneous vision you have will not go away. And what is that clear vision? What is that samyak darshana? That I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. That has to be well established, steady, and firm. So, therefore, punah punaha, we have to keep coming back and work for this vision. Otherwise, the erroneous vision that I am alpaha, I am ajnanaha, ajnani, I am, not I am, aham kinchignaha, rather than aham sarvagnaha. So that I am insecure, that erroneous vision will continue to remain, and we'll continue to have both intellectual and emotional value for things. And we'll go on and on in the cycle of samsara. People generally plan to work for clear vision only after they have fixed up everything in their lives. But it does not work that way. There is no fixing up of everything without the vision. So the pursuit is twofold: yoga, self mastery, and jnana, self knowledge. So you can't say, I'll practice Ashtanga yoga without getting exposed to the knowledge.
So this Samyak Darshana is one talking about
Jnana.
jnana. But then you were saying something else. I didn't get that.
Which one?
Uh,
The
about
erroneous vision.
yeah.
Yeah, so unless
That
we
when
get
you're insecure, that they become erroneous vision.
erroneous vision.
Okay, got it.
That is the basic problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you're feeling insecure, that's artha kama, that purushartha, right? Basically, you want to get secure, like you're looking at outside object without having this knowledge.
Right.
Okay.
So they plan to work, generally people plan to work for clear vision only after they have fixed up everything in their lives. But it does not work that way. There is no fixing up of everything without the vision. So they have to go hand in hand. So exposure to this self-knowledge and your pursuits, they should go hand in hand. That is why for karma yogi, that is what defines a karma yogi. He's not just doing karma in the outside world. He's doing karma. At the same time, he's also pursuing self-knowledge. So the pursuit is twofold: yoga, self-mastery, and jnana, self-knowledge. If we can extrapolate this to seva, there are people who say, after I finish all my responsibilities, I will do seva. But actually, seva, it includes your house as well. It does not exclude your own house. But then, for instance, so it has to go hand in hand. You cannot exclude the society from, you cannot exclude doing service to the society just because you've not completed doing what is done, what is needed at home. You will do both together. Or you need to balance both together. Rather put it that way. Both are important. Because if you say, only after I finish fulfilling everything that is needed at home, then I will step into society, that time will never come. Because there are needs in the home that continue. So, like how Gurudev says, how you balance yourself by riding, how you learn to balance yourself when you're riding a bicycle. If you're moving more to the left, you come back to the center. Moving more to the right, come back to the center. So that balance, that inner balance, each one of us has to set up ourselves. Okay. Removing the sense objects also does not work. Does anyone want to share anything here? Removing the sense objects also does not work. Taking the word Vishaya to mean sense organs, as we have just done, is a simple way of looking at this verse. Now we look at it by taking Vishaya to mean the sense objects. Suppose the sense objects have gone away because you withdraw yourself from the sense world. Previously, you lived in Manhattan, and now you are living in the mountains a day and a half away from anyone. You are completely alone. No objects will come to you, no newspapers, radio, or people. You have not even allowed yourself a television set. Having denied yourself all these sense pursuits, you are a nirahara. So the earlier paragraph was describing nirahara as one who is having a say on his sense organs. One who's withdrawing his sense organs from the sense objects. But here, the other way of looking at it is you're withdrawing yourself, you have denied yourself all the sense objects. In the first place, the person is in the midst of sense objects, but he has only withdrawn his sense organs. Here, a person has gone into the mountain, become a recluse, for instance. However, although the sense objects have gone away, the taste for them will still be there. You will find yourself wondering about what everyone else is doing. Then you will begin to think that you should go back to the city for some time. After all, you will say even Freud does not condone suppression. Freud is the what is that? Supposed to be the father of psychology, modern psychology and psychotherapy.
Sigmund
And
Freud.
then, huh?
Sigmund Freud. Feud.
Sigmund Freud, yes. And then there are those who will send you letters now and then pointing out that what you are doing is wrong. This is the prime of your life. Everyone is making money in the stock market, and you are losing all kinds of opportunities to do the same. Something you will certainly come to regret for the rest of your life. So these are all the letters that people send you, all of which will remind you that you are a nobody. Their comments will begin to make a lot of sense to you because you have rasa inside. A value for money is there. In fact, The only reason you are able to stay where you are is because you have money. Because he had the money, he could make all that trip from Manhattan to the mountains, isn't it? So, just giving up sense objects also does not remove the rasa. The rasa still remains. China had given a beautiful example of a person who runs a tea stall. He goes away to the mountains, wants to become a recluse. So he leaves his family, everybody, and goes to the mountains. And there he has to subsist, he has to drink a little something, right? So he's depending on the tea stalls there. And he says, oh, this tea is not as good as the tea I make, because that rasa is still there inside of him. And he works on that rasa. He ends up setting up a tea stall in the mountains. So the intention with which he first began to go to the mountains is to become a recluse, a sannyasi, for instance. But the rasa is what is prompting him to do what he did, as in opening up a tea stall. Alcohol is another example of something for which the rasa remains. You may have given it up and all the bottles may have walked away, but the rasa will still be there. It will only go when you have something more intoxicating, something with more of a kick in it, something more profound, more beautiful, and more useful. In other words, more powerful. This is why alcoholics require prayer. Without prayer, they cannot easily get rid of the problem. An alcoholic who turns into a sober person can be a saint because he or she has mastered prayer and knows what it is all about. When an alcoholic finds something more powerful than alcohol, the rasa for alcohol within the person goes away. I'm just reminded of the So What project. This is a project that a group of musicians in Argentina, Art of Living devotees, they started off, and they use music, the same music, they turn it into rock and roll kind of music, but they sing bhajans. And then that they actually had concerts across the world, and said this was a they called it yoga rave. It's a it's a concert in the modern sense of a concert. It is similar to a concert, but it takes you to a spiritual high. So instead of going to a disco where you have alcohol, drugs, and recreational drugs and what have you, you come here to the spiritual yoga rave, which takes you to a different height, which is more powerful, which is more uplifting. And I'm just reminded also of a question that came up in yesterday's satsang. The lady asked him, we have these satsangs every day and so many people come every day for the satsang. What is it that draws people to the satsang? What is the value for the satsang? And then Gurudev says, all you have to do is ask what 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 is their experience of these people. That itself will answer the question. So when you're in the company of the good, company of the truth, in a company of uplifting people, that itself is this more powerful thing, something more profound, more intoxicating, more beautiful, more useful. In other words, more powerful. I think we stopped at where we stopped yesterday, but never mind. I think it's
But
important for us
one
to.
question I have, what with Gurudev,
Hmm.
I know if you're talking more into this the spiritual path, but again, in general public, they want to see the movie to enjoy themselves or whatnot. But and more we see nowadays, more violence in the movie. They smoke and use alcohol, drugs, and this and that. I mean, where do we draw the line for this kind of this community? That they have. Any language, I see that there is no more that value to it. Generally speaking. So I'm wondering. Sometimes you want to write something to these people like, hey, why what were doing so much violence in the movies like that? Mm,
You can do that, or that is how the world is. There are
yeah,
different kinds of cadres of people out there. So you use your viveka
yeah.
and avoid watching such movies, right? So we
No,
had
we
that.
do, but there isn't like nowadays for simply saying any movie for that matter. And then in India, there is no, from young age, I mean, there is no bar, right? They're not like rated like R, G, and things like that. Everybody watches every movie. So, I mean, it's just so violent.
Correct.
Mm,
No, I
yeah,
get your point. I see where you're coming from.
yeah.
But
I mean, it's just one of those things you're not, I mean, we know we can avoid it because we're knowing that looking at even the reading the small little summary and doing it. But everybody, having that awakening or awareness in us, and I mean, one person doing it may not help, so it just the whole community has to come forward and listen. We don't make this kind of movies anymore. I mean, that would be something would be nice, but I'm still thinking about it.
that is
Hopefully,
utopia. What we're looking
yeah,
at is utopia, and that utopia is only an
yeah,
ideal vision. It doesn't really happen because
yeah.
there, in this world of duality, you will have both spectra. You will
Yeah,
have
it wasn't like this, right? Like 20 years ago, or even when I my college days, like it wasn't like this. Now, like in the last 20 years, I would say it's more violent. Everything is anyway. So just my thought, like,
yeah, yeah. You're right. I mean, what you
yeah,
said is right,
yeah,
but the fact remains that that is how it is right now.
yeah.
Although we have censor boards and all that, but that is what it is. So therefore, we use this knowledge and this nirahara. So you withdraw your sense organs from the sense objects. So practice Dhamma.
Mm,
See, because every time we give in to the senses, we are laying a foundation for fancies to develop and that rasa to develop. But here, what we want to take a handle and tackle is that rasa. We want to remove even that rasa. So you cannot live a life saying, I will continue to indulge in senses, at the same time pursue self knowledge.
yeah, you can't do that. Yeah.
Then you're a mithya, you're a, what is that? Um, a hypocrite, mithyachara. Like you wear orca robes, but in your mind you have all the fancies going on in your head. So that doesn't work that way. So yoga, practice of yoga, self mastery, as well as self knowledge, they have to go. So we have to draw a line. This is it. And it doesn't amount to suppression, it amounts to coming from a sense of understanding. I think we'll stop here today. The importance of acknowledging the emotional value. We'll do this tomorrow. Anybody wants to share before we close?
Jai Gurudev, this is slightly off topic. 2 days ago, on Sunday in Satsang, it was in Kannada, and somebody asked, I mean, in the questions, they asked Gurudev that Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said, better to do your dharma than paradharma. So they asked, what is paradharma? Did any of you listen to that? Because the thing was in Kannada, so I didn't understand. So Gurudev explains what is Paradharma.
Is it? I think I missed this. What day was this?
Sunday, 2 days ago.
Sunday. Okay. If that satsang is still on, I will have a look at that. I mean, I can listen to that.
I guess so. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev. Just give me a second. I don't know why this screen share is not happening. Okay, for some reason from my computer, this screen share is not happening. I will just share it from my phone. Just give me a second, okay?
Is accepting this moment. Meditation is accepting this moment, living every moment totally with depth. Let us keep our spine erect and body relaxed and eyes closed. Relax your shoulders. Keep a big smile on your face. You're sitting like the statue of Buddha, very serene and with a serene smile on your face. Relax your body. Let's take a deep breath in and breathe out. Become aware of your chest region, throat and chest region. If you notice some tension in the body, just let it be. Except those parts of the body where you feel a tension, the other parts are in comfort. Other parts are at peace. Become aware of that also. There are many good things about you and inside of you. Acknowledge them. They will never leave you. And the negative aspect you may see in you is never going to stay with you forever. They are all guests for some time. Let them be. Sit with the total acceptance of yourself the way you are at this very moment. Total acceptance of what is now here lead us to deeper meditation. Let go of all the effort. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let go of all your effort and be in this emptiness. And slowly and gradually become aware of body and surroundings. And you may gently open your eyes.